everybody. It's me, Claire, and welcome back to my Red Chair, where we continue to celebrate good news in our community every Friday. I'm so happy you're here to join us. It would be easy to look at this week and believe that there's not any good news. In our country, another Black American was killed unjustly by a police officer. It is understandable and okay to be hurting and to feel overwhelmed. However, right now, we're at the forefront of fixing systemic problems. Good news is coming. Amid everything we've seen this week, we have a front row seat to watching the good news unfold. There are millions of people across this country and the world right now standing up for racial equality and justice. So this week, know that there's good news coming, and you get to be a part of it. We all get to be a part of it. We have to be a part of it. Our opportunity to do good is all around us. Each of us has a responsibility to learn, to support, to act, and to become educated allies in our community. You see, Kansas City doesn't just celebrate the good news. We join in, and we become that good news. So know that the good news is coming. It just starts with you. With that being said, with the good news on our horizon, I am incredibly excited to introduce this week's guest and my dear friend, our Children's Center Assistant Program Manager, Jonathan. We know so many individuals across our community are wanting to get involved and to continue to educate themselves on issues surrounding systemic racism and inequality. Jonathan is here with me today, representing Synergy's very own Diversity and Inclusion Committee, to share some of his favorite resources with our viewers. Let's give Jonathan a very warm welcome to the Red Chair. Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us today on the Red Chair. I'm so excited to have you here with me.
Thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, of course. Yeah. I also think that the work that you do is incredible.
Thank you.
And so joining us on the show, I would love to take just a moment to talk about what your role here at Synergy is and what you do.
Sure. So my career here at Synergy started about almost 6 years ago. Here in December will be 6 years. I started out as a overnight advocate at the teen shelter and had no idea about trauma-informed care. I knew nothing about social services. I knew nothing about nothing. And I then moved over to the Children's Center, which is where I work at now as a day advocate. And about a year or so into that time, a year and a half ago at the time, I started to become the assistant program manager for that program.
Well, I will say I have seen you in action, and you are phenomenal at what you're doing.
Well,
it is very evident that our clients love having you around, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
In addition to your role over at the Children's Center, I know that you are a member of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee here at Synergy, and so I was wondering if you could share a little bit about the mission of the D&I Committee, as well as what you all are working on and what is going on your end.
Well, our mission statement of sorts, which we've really worked hard to get towards, is Diversity and Inclusion Committee is dedicated to fulfilling Synergy's core values by fostering and maintaining a diverse, inclusive organizational culture where all feel safe, supported, and heard. And part of that work that we've been doing here is making sure that those voices are heard. And we had a great individual come through here recently where we got together as a community and heard from our staff and heard what they had to say. And from that information, from those statistics that we got back, we started piecing those things together and started to see we're an organization that D&I Committee fits within those frameworks. And we came to find out that a huge portion of that is just the identity piece of saying like, hey, like who am I walking alongside with? And having our clients come in and seeing like people that they can identify, people that who they, and not just saying that's not an exclusionary piece, but just like sometimes you feel comfortable with folks who look like you or know your struggle or know where you're coming from. And that's just across the board in different places. The next thing we're working on right now is, as an organization, we're kind of getting more towards a response to a lot of the hurt things that have been happening, not just here recently, but just overall as well too. And so we're looking at ways to help bond us together as well as what to do moving forward. We're still in the planning process of those things, so hopefully here soon we'll be able to unveil that for everyone so folks can see what we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, I will say it is a pleasure to sit alongside Jonathan and our many other colleagues on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee here at Synergy Services. I want to echo that we are on the cusp of something really incredible and really working together, joining forces, not only with ourselves but a lot of community partners to make an impact. And with everything going on right now, I know that there are so many individuals across our agency and across our community interested in getting involved in this movement and working to educate themselves, as well as to dive into personal biases, hidden biases that they may have, to become conducive allies for the Black community through acting, through learning, all of these different things. And I know that you had some resources that you'd like to share today. So I was wondering if we could dive in and give our viewers some really incredible resources to help them.
Yeah, of course. Different folks engage in this conversation in different ways, and so we want to make sure that that is so we give out too. And part of our D&I community, we actually just did this here recently, and actually over the last few months, we've been gathering resources from just our members on our board, but also outside sources as well too, to give to folks who do want to further their education, who do want to lean in more so too. Is everyone comes from a different place and come from different knowledge base as well too, and so how we gauge this conversation can come from different forms, different ways. So there's a plethora of different options are out there, whether it be music or books or podcasts, TV shows, whatever it may be. Those are things or avenues for you to kind of like engage in the conversation on your own time, in your own ways. One of the things right now that we're as an advocate, as allies as well too, is that there might be some fatigue in those things. So know that some folks might not be as readily to do those things, but show some grace and a little space in those spaces as well too. But ask kindly too, like, hey, like I really do want to watch this. Would you mind watching this with me? Or hey, I watched this show. Would you mind talking to me about this? Or hey, I just found this podcast, and they talk about all these different things on here. What are some things like that? And also too, having those conversations with your friends and your family as well too. It doesn't have to be with like people of color. You can be with anyone. It is tough to talk about race, to talk about diversity, to talk about these things. It's not an easy thing because it's not like talking about the Chiefs and the 49ers Super Bowl, which is like a very simple thing, like very well, unless you're not a 49ers or Chiefs fan. It's not an easy thing to talk about. So building that resiliency to do those things is really is a key thing to having these conversations as well too. So there's a ton of different avenues, a ton of different ways that we can go over to. So share those resources with you. Documentaries, if documentaries is your thing, there is a whole swath of them too, but for those folks who are like in the beginning phases of that too, I would watch I'm Not Your Negro. It is a great introductory in this piece. You're probably like, that's pretty heavy documentary. That's what documentaries are, pretty heavy. But it's a really good piece to kind of start asking personal questions from within yourself. And James Walton is an amazing author and has written many different books as well too, but this particular film is like his engagement with it and like in him coming back and him speaking different things. It's just a remarkable film. It starts to pull in the tug strings of your heart and starts to kind of loosen up those tight muscles that there are tight in different ways as well too. And it's just a really great introductory piece of that too. On the opposite side of that, because we were discussing a little bit earlier, like I love baseball. I'm a baseball fan. I think it's the most amazing game that was ever invented. You can debate me on it as you want to, but it's the only game. It's the only game you can sit and instantaneously everything happens all at once. And it's the only sport where it's one person against 9 people, and the defense has the ball the entire time. So think about that.
Jonathan's hot takes today.
These are hot takes from baseball. But the reason why I recommend that particular sport, because the documentary by Ken Burns is a really excellent look into the segregation of a sport that's one of the oldest sports in history, and how Black Americans and Latino Americans like fought to get into such an amazing game. And it does ask the question, are these players the greatest players of the generation if they did not play the greatest players of the generation? but it's an amazing film that does talk about race and its core piece. And one of the lines that comes up to me, especially that's really poignant in this time right now, is like, my skin's against me. And that's just such a really, really poignant thing to say. Because there's a lot of people who feel that hurt and that pain right now, and they really feel like their skin's against them in a lot of ways. So that would be a really good one as well too. One of those books I recommend is The Invisible Man. It's a telling. It's like, it is like the quintessential book that you should read. Period. It just is. It gives the insight and look from someone who kind of drifts through in society, who's within the society, and how that society is against them. That's case. The other one I would say too, and it's more sometimes like in faith-based communities as well too, it would be like White Awake and White Fragility. There's also another book within that faith-based group called Prophetic Lament. One of the issues that does happen sometimes is that when someone does die, or someone does pass away, or someone is murdered, we want to look for facts. We want to look for like who did it, like how is it involved, as opposed to just like lamenting that we just lost someone's life, and then process through everything else too. But first, like take a moment and say like someone lost a child, someone lost a friend, someone lost a father, someone lost someone in that space. So it's really truly about those things. Those are really good books as well too. They speak into the wide experience as well too. I would definitely recommend those ones for sure. TV shows. I mean, I can recommend TV shows out the wazoo that deal with race for sure. If you're beginning out in terms of TV shows, watch Roots. If you're just kind of like new to the conversation, if you're just kind of like, if you or 12 Years a Slave kind of go hand in hand in those things as well too. Two definitely tough things, but Roots is a miniseries Alex Haley wrote many years back, and brought this about his own family personal history that he did research for. So this is another perfect book to read as well too, but perfect miniseries. So those are some, hopefully those resources kind of help out in some spaces as well too. Check those things out, and there's a list of more. We can definitely list out some, or there'd be a description of like this pod, and we can definitely do that as well too.
Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much. And as he was just saying, we will make sure that we continue to showcase a lot of these different resources. We'll upload a list online so that you can find out how you can become a part of the good news, how you can continue to support your community, to stand up, to learn, to act in a way that supports every single person. So Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us here on the Red Chair. I so very much appreciate you.
Kansas City, let's each take the time to become a part of the good news. We want to hear what each of you are doing to help. Comment or send in any messages of hope, resources, or moments of good news you may have to share. On behalf of myself, Claire, thank you for joining me on the Red Chair. We'll see you next week. Don't forget, be kind.